Hello, good evening. Tim Davie has tonight resigned as Director General of the BBC, along with the CEO of BBC News, Deborah Turness, after a week of criticism of BBC News coverage and allegations of editorial mistakes. In a statement to staff, Tim Davie said there have been some mistakes made, and as Director General, I have to take ultimate responsibility. Last week, The Telegraph published details of a leaked memo which made a number of allegations, including suggesting an edition of Panorama had selectively edited a speech by President Trump. In her statement to staff, Deborah Turness also acknowledged mistakes, but added that recent allegations that BBC News is institutionally biased are wrong. Here's our media correspondent, David Silito.
The BBC, and after a week of headlines and many behind-the-scenes conversations, a series of Sunday night statements announcing that both the Director General and the Chief Executive of News are resigning. The reason, or at least a major part of the reason, is this Panorama broadcast last year. The programme about Donald Trump featured this clip of his speech on January the 6th, 2021.
We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and I'll be there with you, and we fight. We fight like hell, and if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
That sentence was actually from two different sections of Donald Trump's speech, 54 minutes apart. The first part of the sentence actually ended with this.
And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women.
And an external editorial advisor, Michael Prescott, feels the edit was seriously misleading. In a statement, the Director General, Tim Davie, said, while not being the only reason the current debate around BBC News has understandably contributed to my decision. Overall, the BBC is delivering well, but there have been some mistakes made, and as Director General, I have to take ultimate responsibility. And his Chief Executive of News, Deborah Turness, said the ongoing controversy around the Panorama on President Trump has reached a stage where it is causing damage to the BBC, an institution that I love. While mistakes have been made, I want to be absolutely clear. Recent allegations that BBC News is institutionally biased are wrong.
We're going to walk down.
The question is, how did a story in The Telegraph about a 12-second clip from a Panorama lead to all of this? For many, it's about how the BBC responded.
They've known all about this for 6 months, and they were keeping stum about it, hoping that it would go away. Instead of going away, it ends up with some incredible reporting by the Daily Telegraph, which has forced this change.
The problem is here that not that they're institutionally biased, but as an organisation, they appear to be somewhat stupid because they make really stupid basic mistakes, and then they are hopeless at PR.
For Tim Davie, it's far from the first headline-making crisis, though. There was the scandal over Hugh Edwards, the long-running drama over Gary Lineker, and more recently an apology about a documentary on Gaza in which it was revealed the young narrator was the son of a Hamas official. And that's far from a complete list.
The Director General of the BBC is a most enormous job, and you're dealing with MasterChef, and you're dealing with Hugh Edwards, and you're dealing with all these other issues that happen. And I think it's almost too much for one person.
And for the BBC, this has happened at a crucial moment. These resignations and their accompanying statements make it clear mistakes, serious mistakes, have been made. And also that the reputation and trust in the BBC, especially BBC News, was being damaged. And all of this comes at a crucial moment, just as the BBC is about to begin to argue its case for its next charter.
I think it leaves the BBC in a very difficult position coming up to charter renewal, and the people who don't believe in the BBC fundamentally will be pleased to see these two people go.
And tonight, a statement from Donald Trump castigating the BBC, saying they were caught doctoring my very good, perfect speech of January the 6th. Tim Davie's resignation, the end of a turbulent time in charge. His watchwords throughout: trust and impartiality. David Silito, BBC News.
Well, as we heard there, President Trump has commented tonight. Let's go straight to Sarah Smith in Washington. What else has the president said, Sarah?
Well, let me read you the whole of the post that he put on Truth Social. He said the top people in the BBC, including Tim Davie, the boss, are all quitting/fired because they were caught doctoring my very good (brackets perfect) speech of January the 6th. Thank you to the Telegraph for exposing these corrupt journalists. They're very dishonest people who tried to step on the scales of a presidential election. On top of everything else, they're from a foreign country, one that many consider our #1 ally. What a terrible thing for democracy. And he also posted links to various news stories about the resignations in the Telegraph, the Independent, the Daily Mail, and in fact on the BBC's own website. The White House first responded to this story last week on Friday when President Trump's press secretary Caroline Leavitt described the BBC as being 100% fake news and a leftist propaganda machine. And she too has posted on social media today celebrating the resignations of Tim Davie and Deborah Turness.
Sarah, thank you. Sarah Smith in Washington. Well, Chris Mason and Katie Razzle are here, as we said. Katie, this is unprecedented.
Absolutely. Not one but two resignations. The President of the United States calling BBC journalists corrupt. These are seismic times. Let's break it down. Let's take at face value first the statements by the Director General and the CEO of News. Tim Davie referenced the very intense personal and professional toll of the job. And I had picked up for some time that he was less buoyant than he had been after a series of controversies. And I just think the cumulative effect of them meant he just didn't have enough oil in the tank for another fight. Deborah Turness has also resigned, saying the buck stops with her, as you heard, after the damaging story of the Panorama edit of the President Trump speech. Now, some people will take away from that they've resigned because of a series of editorial mistakes. Remember, the BBC's detractors, for them, this is not just about one issue. It's about issues around the Gaza coverage, indeed the BBC's journalism around trans. So it's not just the story of that edit. But on that edit, I was asking all week, why is the BBC not getting out on the front foot and either defending it or, more likely, apologising for it? And what I understand tonight is that is exactly what the news division wanted to do. I've been told by multiple sources that a statement had been prepared days ago, which was going to say, we didn't intentionally mislead, but we've looked at it and we do think there should have been a flash or a wipe or something to show some sort of edit. And that would have then allowed them to move out and then try and refute the other claims, the wider claims of institutional bias, which they do say are untrue. But I've been told that the BBC board, the governing body which oversees strategy and ensures editorial standards, did not let that statement go out. Instead, it wanted to wait for a letter to go to the Culture, Media and Sport Committee. And that did allow the damaging headlines to fester. It's important to say other people have said that is a mischaracterisation. It wasn't as clear-cut as that. But the bottom line is, those who have called the BBC's journalism into question will call what's happened accountability. Another source characterised it to me as the culmination of a relentless critique of BBC journalism over 2 years by members of the board and advisers, all of whom come from the same political persuasion, that person said. And there was an intriguing line in the Director General's statement when he talked about the BBC. He said, we should champion it, not weaponise it. And of course, more might emerge in the coming days. But tonight, some are asking whether the resignations of both the Director General and the CEO of News suggest the BBC has been weaponised.
Katie, thank you. Chris, what political reaction here?
Well, the scale of the BBC and its funding model has always meant and will always mean that it'll be subject to the highest scrutiny, and plenty will say absolutely so it should be. And for politicians of every political persuasion, it's not just another organisation which they can be detached from or disinterested in. They will have a personal experience of it alongside any political view. Political reaction tonight, no word from Downing Street. I think we'll hear from the Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, on camera tomorrow. She thanked Tim Davie tonight. They have had a bumpy relationship in parts. Now, the sharpest criticisms of the BBC often, but not always, come from the right. The Conservative leader, Kemi Badenoch, tonight welcoming the resignations, adding that the revelations of recent days expose institutional bias, as she put it. Some Tories are privately suggesting the new appointments replacing the two posts that will be soon soon vacant should be brought in from outside the organisation. Nigel Farage, the Reform leader, saying there was time for wholesale change, the BBC's last chance, he said. And in a BBC interview tonight, he said he doesn't want the corporation abolished, but it should be slimmed down. The Liberal Democrats have a different perspective, but one that also amounts to a critique. They've had a public campaign suggesting that there's been too much attention on reform and Nigel Farage. Tonight, Sir Ed Davie, in just the last 15 minutes, saying it's easy to see why President Trump wants to destroy the world's #1 news source. We can't let him. One final thought, Jane. Beyond these public statements, when I speak to politicians of all political persuasions, they ponder how they can shape an environment for public and private UK-based broadcasters of news and other programming, how they can create an environment where those broadcasters can thrive and first survive in an era where the internet is changing everything, streaming and social media. They're aware of the importance of getting that right, and that will be part of the wider conversation in terms of what comes next.
Chris Mason, Katie Razzle, thank you.